I'll call the meeting to order officially at 7:14. Thank you, Eric, for joining. If anyone from the public wishes to speak under that segment, seeing none, move forward. Just discuss the appreciation for former Chair Ann Santos. Administratively, we need to review the minutes for the May 20th town meeting. I'm going to load them up here. I just have to resize things so that they will be able to be seen. Okay. So these are the minutes for the meeting from May 20th, which was our last official meeting. It has the location, the members present. It also states, Attorney Borowski, you were present. So location, time, date, and the topics that we discussed are listed. And it does have a listing of the votes. They were all unanimous. The only change that I recommend that we add here is a notation that all votes were taken by roll call as they were. That way it's consistent with the expectation and confirmation that all votes were taken by roll call in a meeting that has a Zoom component. So with that, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented with the modification that it states that all votes were taken by roll call?
I'll make a motion with one additional modification to
Sure.
spell my name correctly throughout, so it's consistent with the members present.
So what was the piece that you wanted to have?
Just my name spelled, it's Kevin, which is the right way at the top, and then down in the items, it's Keven.
Got it. Yes, to do the ministerial replace absolutely makes sense. Okay, so with those corrections, motion's been made. I will second. Eric, if you're able to come off of mute, that'll be helpful here. If you're not able to come off of mute, if you can indicate your vote in some other way when called upon. So we've got a motion made and seconded. So Kevin?
Yes.
Eric, if you're able to indicate a vote. I'm also in favor.
Yeah.
Eric is also in favor. Excellent.
Yeah, I looked at the minutes. They're okay to me. So I'm voting in favor.
Excellent. Thank you. And as you can see, I'm adding the footer. This is what I do as a standard practice for all minutes that get updated, and then I just save a copy of them. So excellent. Thank you very much. That takes care of that item. So item number 5 is our big one, zoning recap. And for that, anything else that anyone wanted to discuss, Attorney Bobrowski, about the meetings that we had over the summer? They were relatively brief. If there's anything that you wanted to discuss, they occurred to really let people be aware that this was happening, increase the awareness. Attorney Bobrowski, any further comment on the 3 meetings that we had over the summer in August?
No,
Okay, that brings us over to item 5, zoning recodification, draft 9, and soon to be draft 10 that was just received today, and then possibly even draft 11, which will probably incorporate some additional updates as well. So, Attorney Bobrowski, I'll turn things over to you. 2 things, if I can ask that you cover, is the highlights for this. I've set it up so you can do sharing. And also, if you want to explain the decision from the Attorney General's office on the May 5th town meeting approvals and what that means to this, if you can just cover those 2 items.
Sure. I'll cover the latter one first. The AG approved the floodplain bylaw as printed, short and sweet. The ADU bylaw had 2 minor changes that the Attorney General wanted. And in a memo that Tom sent to me and possibly to others, he suggested a couple of fixes, if you will. And I'm just going to pull that memo up right now. Hang on. So, the AG wanted 2 changes. There was a sentence in a definition. A modular dwelling unit shall not include a manufactured home as defined under statute. And they wanted Tom suggested that that sentence be deleted, which I've already done. And then the second one was there's a sentence that has the word permanent before the word foundation. And that also, that word permanent was to be deleted, and I've already done that. So when we go through the main bylaw tonight, you'll see those changes, which I've highlighted in yellow, just so that anybody looking for that can find it. Tom had, I think given the, normally what would happen here with an AG disapproval, however small, is that when you had the next opportunity, you would make these changes. It's just really rare that you would have them within weeks. And so I think we're adequately taking care of this. You still have an obligation to probably, and Tom called this to our attention, post or publish the amended bylaw, Chapter 40, Section 32, requires that after the AG has approved an amendment, there's a posting that has to be met, and it won't be effective until you do. And when you post it, I would make those changes because the AG rejected those 2 things. And then when we go to the recodification advertising, it won't even be an issue. But if you want this, if you want the ADU to take effect prior to November, whatever you just told me, November 8th, then you're going to have to do the posting and publishing.
We talked about this in our planning board meeting last night, and we're told that the town clerk has posted the revision with those 2 deletions at every precinct throughout town, and it has to be posted for 90 days before we can enter it into E-code.
Okay.
And September 8th was the day that it was posted at all precincts.
Yeah, this is, oh, so it has to be posted in, oh yeah. The publication of a zoning bylaw shall include a statement that claims of invalidity by reason of any defect may only be made within 90 days. I think that's the 90 days you're referring to, Kevin. So I think those are pretty much in the rear view mirror now. When we do the recodified bylaw, the changes will already be in there. And the AG should not have any problem because those are the only two issues they found in the ADU bylaw. I haven't seen the AG's approval or approval with changes to the MBTA bylaw.
That was approved
Okay, without
That-
change?
without change.
Okay, so that's good. So now I just need a copy of the MBTA as approved by town meeting, and I'll fold that in. I'm putting that on my list of things I have to do in order to get this draft ready. So when would we be looking to go to a public hearing?
So for the public hearing, if it looks like Eric dropped off briefly. So assuming that he's able to get back on, we can take a vote, which we'll try to do quickly to advance. Oh, it looks like Eric is joining up again. Excellent. So we can take a vote to advance the article. That will then be submitted immediately to the town council. The town council will then have to, at their next meeting, do the referral to the planning board. I don't know whether the planning board is required to wait for that referral before they schedule the public hearing or not. I don't know that they're actually required to wait to receive it if they know that they are, because I can certainly send a copy of the article to them as well, so they can schedule that post haste.
Yeah,
And then it's just a matter of, I'm not sure of the process, Kevin, that you have to get that hearing scheduled.
October 14th and October 28th are the two that we're looking at, with one of those being hybrid and one being remote only.
so I actually have you in my book already for October 14th. And what was the other one, Kevin?
October 28th. So I think the 14th was the hybrid, and then the 28th was the remote only.
Yeah, I'll be in New Orleans on the 28th, so that's good. And are we gonna do, so are we thinking that we'll open the public hearing on the 14th and make it as far as we can and clean up any messes on the 28th?
We could do it that way. I think the planning board was looking at it as having an opportunity for two different groups to hear if someone
Okay.
couldn't make one or the
Yeah.
other.
Okay. So if it's gonna be the 14th, that means the advertising for this needs to be right, no later than we're probably talking Friday, the 26th. Does that sound about right? So your newspaper of general circulation would publish, I don't know what you use. What do you use?
For publication, it's distribution in each of the precincts in the town.
What about the newspaper of general circulation? Do you do that?
I think
Mm,
it goes to the item.
That's the item for some things, but they've actually been moving to, for formal publication, it's actually in all of the precincts of the town.
Okay.
I think the statute, unless your charter says something different, the statute says it has to be published twice in a newspaper of general circulation.
Oh, for the public hearing, yes, that's in the newspaper. That's the daily item.
And do they have a deadline? Like I'm looking at the week of the 22nd, and I don't know what day they publish and what day they would need it in order to make the deadline.
They publish 5 days a week, and typically they'll take anything up until about 9:30 a.m. on the day of publication.
Okay.
As long as there's money attached to it, they're fine with it.
All right, so with the public hearing opening on the 14th, it seems safe to say that we would want to get an ad in the item the week of the 22nd of September.
And that'll be handled by the planning board itself.
Okay. Um, so I would need to get it up to you. I'm assuming that nothing crazy happens tonight, I think I could probably get it to you Monday or Tuesday of next week, which would be a week in advance of the publication week. Does that sound about right?
It does, although all that I think that needs to be published, my understanding, Kevin, you have more experience with this than I do, is actually the warrant article itself as opposed to the full text of the recodification, although, because my understanding is that that has to be done basically before the hearing itself opens, but not before the publication of it. Is that correct?
I think that's right.
So that'll give you a couple extra weeks because the publication will be based upon the article, which we will take momentarily, which fantastic, since you happen to bring it up. And we've got 4 people. If we want to quickly review that, we can go over it.
Okay, so this is got some questions in it, but it's a long ago agreement I've had with the municipal law unit at the AG's office that they'll accept this as being an adequate warrant article. What I've done is I've taken the bylaw that's currently online and I've looked for all of the articles that it has. And it ends right now, as I said, with Article 19. And I know that there's a self-storage overlay district. I just don't think it ever made it onto the internet as an article. If it has an article number, that's easy. I can just put it there.
It will not have made it on because of the approval just came through.
Yeah.
And they're now in the 90 days. So that's why you won't find it yet.
Okay, so I'm gonna delete it because we recodified it. And I just need some way of referring to that, that's all.
Is you should be able to get what that article is, or if you ask Tom, he will probably know what the way that's going to be listed.
All right, I just go back to the top here. I looked at the bylaw as recodified. Well, first of all, let's see what Tom sent this to see if the town will vote to hear the report of the bylaw review committee, accept it as the final report and discharge the committee.
That's a separate article.
Okay, so that's not our article.
Nope.
All
That's
right.
that's a second article.
All right. So then
While we're at it, before you delete it, if I can, that's actually item 7B, real quick. If we can have a vote to accept that as an article so that we can actually present a final report that we will then discuss the preparation for it separately. So can we have a motion to have an article for town meeting that says to see if the town will vote to hear the report of the bylaw review committee accepted as final report of the committee and discharge of the committee, or to see what the town will do about it?
So moved.
Kevin has made the motion. Eric, if you have the ability to come off of mute, you can second the motion. Failing that, I will second the motion. I will second the motion. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Motion before you is to create an article for the town meeting that says to see if the town will vote to hear the report of the bylaw review committee, accept it as the final report of the committee and discharge of the committee, or to see what the town will do about it. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Eric, if you're able to come off of mute or indicate with a tool, otherwise we'll take it as an abstention. And I vote in approval as well. So at the moment it is 2 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention. If Eric is able to indicate his vote at a later time, we will record that as well. So thank you, Mark. That way
Okay,
we got one down, 1 to go.
All right, so now the caption is to see if the town will vote to amend and recodify the zoning bylaw by taking the following steps. And essentially it's delete this bunch of things and substitute the new chapter headings for the old. It's one fell swoop. I got to get the formal title of what we're looking at here, because the last version of the bylaw hasn't been prepared yet. So that's just holding a place.
Okay, and the date has to be updated.
Yeah, and then the other provision here is, but not the current zoning map. So we're not preparing a new zoning map. I think the old one is dated 2022. And I just want to verify that that's correct.
That's right.
Okay. So then we're not making a mistake there. And then you can see that this is just all inclusive. So that's everything we've done in the new recodified bylaw. So this always presents, a conundrum. This is nice, it's short and sweet, but nobody has a document in front of them to vote on. How do you handle that?
So we've discussed that a bit with the prior town administrator, with the town administrator's office, and the planned approach is twofold. One, to make the document available in its entirety electronically on the town website, and to put it prominently, a link to it prominently on the website, in addition to the bylaw review committee area. So the idea is to make it as easy as possible. In addition, it will also, as stated, it will be, upon request, a printed copy will be available at the town administrator's office. In practice, there may also be some available at the town clerk's office, but I think for practicality, we can state that they will be available at the town administrator's office. If the town administrator, who will have started just before in the middle of this process, chooses to handle it differently, I think if they put a sign up or something, that would be sufficient notice to the public of a really ministerial change within the building.
But there won't be newspaper versions of this circulated at town meeting.
Correct.
If people want to talk about this, and they can always just print it off their computer.
They can print it, or they can request a printed copy, or they can, if they have an electronic device, they'll be able to access it dynamically from within the auditorium itself.
Okay.
I anticipate most people will probably be accessing it electronically.
Yeah.
There'll be some people, and I'm going to pick on Eric here, that prefer to do things on paper, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's just a different format of working, and those copies will be made available at no charge.
And will there be some sort of electronic display of this on a screen where we can scroll through?
Yes.
Is that a good idea?
The practice has been for articles of this general nature, for bylaw review in particular. We haven't done recodification recently, so I can't talk to that specifically. But in general, we have a PowerPoint presentation or equivalent, and we present what the general article is, and then we can also add in or dynamically access anything upon request. So my expectation, and we'll get to a little bit of those mechanics just to make sure that that we have agreement by the committee on, is that realistically, Mark, you and I will work on a very short version of a presentation. We're limited to 10 minutes by default for the presentation itself.
Yeah.
But to ideally use less than that, that just covers the highlights of what this is about, put some of those components on bullet points. If people have questions and you want to show particular language, we will have the ability to then navigate to that language at really your discretion. And you have more experience presenting these than we do. So that's where I'll expect to lean heavily to you as if there are questions that need to be shown exact language.
That's fine. I mean, normally what I do is, and you'll see this at the public hearing too, is go through this section by section. So here's section 1. Here's what's the same. Here's what we changed. Here's why we changed it. Any questions? Section 2, same deal. And, obviously you get bogged down in places that are much more complex than simple, but I've seen everything.
I think that sounds perfectly from a practical perspective, sounds perfectly appropriate for a public hearing, for a town meeting. I would actually reduce things further
Okay,
to really just highlights. If people have questions that have not been raised at a public hearing or otherwise, it'll certainly be welcome. I don't want to indicate that we're trying to push this through without addressing anyone's questions.
yeah,
But I think that the idea here is that there's ample time for something this complex for people to get questions answered or at least prompted in advance. And if people give us questions that they know they're going to have, we can build them into the presentation. So that way we don't have to try and do this in a way that's consistent with the budget. The budget is done in about 8 different sections and typically takes 30 to 40 minutes of presentation and vote with very little discussion.
yeah,
Just because of the complexity. I'm trying to avoid that because I don't think that the townspeople will really want to get to that level of detail. They'll be interested in knowing, I anticipate they'll be interested in knowing that there really are no changes to maps. There's no new districts being created through this in that way,
yeah,
that it's designed to enhance the livability of the town. It's not changing dimensional requirements. And it's making things so that it's much clearer for people to really know how to get exceptions and approvals, and what they need to do to get to work within the bylaws to get approvals for things that may need to get a approval by any of the relevant committees, if that makes sense. I'm thinking that we should be able to try to keep this short. Kevin, you've been doing this type of town meeting article, relative to planning board type things. Your thoughts on this?
I think shorter is better. I think you're right. The majority of the room doesn't want to get bogged down in details.
And I'm sure there will be some pointed questions. I would expect that.
yeah.
But
Well,
otherwise, if in our presentation, I think we avoid most of the details. People want to know, okay, there's there's some new use case examples. They'll want to know that, okay, the ADU was built in and the changes were made. Okay, done. I think as a practical and political matter, we will want to make sure that we state there are no changes to the MBTA bylaw
yeah,
as currently implemented. And it will probably be limited to that because that was extremely controversial in town when it was initially introduced. But otherwise, we just try to keep it as high level as possible.
well, I'm on a hot streak. So when I had my double meeting night in May, I drove like a madman to Holden, where they recently had some tornadoes, from Norton. And as I approached 9 o'clock, I was Article 33. I walked in at Article 31. The planner, nice gentleman, David George, raised his hand. I said, David, do I have permission to speak? He said, no, we were going to do that when you got here. He signaled the moderator and said, Mr. Bobrowski is here. May he have permission to speak? And the moderator said, how long does he need? And David, remember, this is a town meeting that's been going on since 6:30. David said 5 minutes. The audible groan in the audience discouraged the moderator from giving me permission. Some guy yelled, call the question. And 3 minutes later, I was back in the car, successfully driving home. So sometimes you just can't, you can't get that lucky every time, but you never know. All right, so this has got to be cleaned up. I'll clean it up and I'll get this over to you in the next week or so.
Okay, for what it's worth, the warrant was just opened on Monday and it will close in a couple of weeks. So with that, if you can go back to the document real quick, just so we can see it. If we can take a vote subject to the ministerial changes as described by Attorney Bobrowski for the titles of certain sections and the references to the town meeting and the handout, do we have a motion to approve the article for recodification as presented?
Motion to approve the article for recodification as presented.
Subject to the ministerial changes.
It's covered by Attorney Bobrowski.
Motion's been made. I will second the motion. Eric, if you're able to come off mute, we'd love to hear your comments on this. So motion's been made and seconded. Failing any additional comment. Kevin, in favor or against?
In favor.
So Kevin is in favor. Eric, if you're able to indicate, you're also able to indicate if you have the ability to through the reactions at the bottom of the screen. That's also acceptable for this purpose. If you're unable to do so, that's understandable. We'll take it as an abstention. I'm also in favor. So we have 2 in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention for now. And again, Eric, before the meeting, if you wish to vote on those items, please let us know. We will reopen the vote for that. So excellent. So with that, we've got 2 articles for submission. And as soon as we have those ready, I will submit them to the town council. I will also submit it directly to the planning board. So Kevin, if you can be on the lookout for it, I'll make sure you're CC'd as well. And if you want to notify your colleagues on the planning board, this has been approved by the committee and will be submitted post haste. That way, again, it can get put in for publication and so forth. So that way, I'm just trying to make sure we're not having the any administrative delays that are avoidable.
Yep. You said you're submitting to town council as well?
Correct, because ultimately we have to submit to town council to get onto the warrant. So submitting to town council, and the warrant itself closes, I believe it's around October 3rd. So the fact that's separate from the advertising components that's required for the public hearing. Because you can do the advertising regardless of whether it's been formally referred, it just has to go through that process.
Okay, I'm going to turn our attention to the bylaw now,
Go for it.
which is ambitiously labeled the draft 10. And I was making the changes I discussed with Eric today. And I'll probably fold Attorney McGrail's changes into this as well, so. Okay, where'd the Zoom go? Draft 10. Okay, so I'll just sort of there's Eric suggested a change to the front of the bylaw that basically says he had what I thought was an amusing idea that it would be like a playbook in not a playbill in a theater, that the actors are A, B, C, and I thought that would best go at section 10 between the overall administrative caption and 10.1, which is the building inspector. And I would add the building inspector to the list, just, this section defines the responsibilities and duties of the building commissioner, the planning board, the Board of Appeals, and the town council. So that's a change that he'd suggested, and I haven't made it yet, so I'm telling you about it instead. And I otherwise have put things here in yellow, so you're not going to see that much. I know that Attorney McGrail, one of his comments, again, just got it at about 5 o'clock, was to delete the multiple residence MR1, MR2, seeing as how there hasn't been a piece of land designated as this for quite some time, if ever. So just alerting you to that.
Where it doesn't impact the maps, I think, I don't see any conflict with
Yeah,
that.
and I do need to add the MBTA overlay district to this list of special districts. There's the reference to the old zoning map. I think Attorney McGrail, again, this is just from scrolling, the creative development overlay district is not located on a separate map because there isn't one on the ground yet. So that's likely to be deleted. I don't think there was anything that I talked about here. Some of Eric's suggestions were smoothing out rough edges. For example, many of the provisions that I just blocked and pasted from your old bylaw use the term special permit granting authority without capitalizing any of it. And I've gone through it already, and to the extent it's generically a reference, I've made it capitalized. To the extent it's in a section that has already designated the special permit granting authority in an early sentence, I've just gone to SPGA for the section. So if it says, for example, that the planning board is a special permit granting authority in the XYZ district, I've said, is the special permit granting authority in capital, each letter capitalized at the beginning of each word, and then afterwards in parentheses SPGA. So then throughout the rest of the bylaw, it's SPGA, throughout the rest of the section. I know that there's an aversion to giving the council any, as here in the bylaw, I know there's an aversion to saying this because they don't do it, but that doesn't mean they won't ever want to do it. And you don't have to use the tool, but it is a statutory tool available to the town. So until somebody shoots me, I'm going to keep doing it. Now, Eric had a couple of specific changes here to section 4. One of them is this formula you've got. He had some suggestions that, if I can find my email from him on point. I think what he wanted to do was clean up the formula. For example, capitalize coefficient of regularity. Also, there was a problem with a missing denominator, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right. He was really good about making it so that it seemed cleaner.
Yeah.
And I know that some of Brian's changes, similar to what you've been describing, are things like capitalizing the B and D in business district. So,
Yeah.
but a bunch of changes like that I think are actually really helpful going forward.
Yeah, and then he had, I think this is complicated enough for the math challenge like me, that you would want he had actually put together 4 different computations, more or less going up a ladder, so that people could see how to implement this, and asked whether or not, it was really a note. I thought it was helpful, and I thought we would include it. So you'll see that next time. Unless you tell me that you don't want notes like that.
I think that anything that makes it easier to understand and easier for the various boards to understand what the intent of the town meeting is very helpful.
Good.
That's my personal view on it.
Yep. All right. So I don't think he had anything, or we have anything to talk about, unless Mr. McGrail does, but I haven't seen it yet beyond section 3, I think. And I don't think there were any things in here.
There's some definition components that I know that he wanted to make sure that you were aware of,
Okay.
but it's included in his red line.
Yeah. I'm going to put the MBTA in as the final section of section 9. Oh. So what are we doing with the design review committee? Anything?
Is this for the signage?
Yeah. I think I'm asking this a little out of order. That's just a minor change. Let's hold that question to discuss when we get through the rest of the document. So for example, in the ADU, which is 8.1, I've added it in now. It wasn't in the last version. You see the strikeout here for permanent foundation. That's, the other one is in the definitions in the section 11. Same thing. This is the new floodplain district. And the definitions were already in. So one change that Eric suggested was that wherever we have an overlay district, then there's an abbreviation such as the municipal building reuse, that I do first reference to the acronym, and then whenever possible, just do the acronym. Otherwise, why have an acronym? So you can see that a lot of these they said the whole thing, and and you get an example of what Eric suggested with regard to the SPGA too. So by the planning board acting as special permit granting authority, SPGA, and now I don't have to put the planning board, I can just put SPGA, which I've done. You can see it here, you can see it here, you can see it here. That sort of streamlines things. And I didn't make those yellow. Same thing here, SOD for the signage overlay. You'll see that abbreviation now. There were some changes in section 10 that I'm working my way over to do. So it looks like MBTA will be 9.9. This is where Eric's playbill introductions will occur. Okay, Eric informed me that he had introduced an article to town meeting through maybe the town council's office that the building inspector will prepare a yearly report for inclusion in the annual report, that in addition to the summation of monthly reports to the town administrator, this is up here, shall include a list of new major buildings that were inspected. Major is defined as 3 stories high and 10 housing units. So I think that the town meeting had a lot more on its mind than it had the time to discuss this, and so it was passed over. So this is I guess we can call this Eric's revenge.
Hmm.
But I told him I would put it in
I
there.
heard that, I heard that.
Right. So I leave it up to you, gentlemen.
I don't have, where it's talking about the reports itself, this is really a internal issue in terms of the work by the building inspector. I
Yeah.
don't see there being any problem with it. The question I have for you, Attorney Bobrowski, is would major be where it says at least 3 stories high and 10 housing units? So would that mean that a building that is, 5-story, that is, 5 stories high, but doesn't have housing would not be defined as major? That's where I looked at it and said, it might, that where it may be, need to be an or 10 housing units instead of an and.
I don't disagree.
Otherwise, I'm not opposed to this in concept. Kevin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't have issues with it. I like your change though, changing the and to an or.
Okay.
And where we've defined a story, that means that it would impact even very tall 3 stories or so. Uh, it, residences that may only have 4 units, and I think that that's okay. It's just listing them so that people have an idea of what's going on. I again, where it's not putting an imposition on the homeowner or the property owner, I don't think it's going to cause any problem. But I do agree with Eric that having the information can be valuable, especially historically.
Congratulations, Eric.
Hey,
Under the Board of Appeals, Kevin pointed out that the term zoning administrator is defined. I think it appeared 8 times in the recodified bylaw. And it is a statutory matter. So if the Board of Appeals wanted to appoint a zoning administrator under section 13 of the statute, they could do so. And we might as well list it as one of their powers. So that's what you see here in number 6.
Okay, for what it's worth, that's the type of question that I see coming up at town meeting. I don't think we pointed out proactively. I don't think there's an advantage to it, but I could absolutely see someone asking, why is that? There a cost for that, things along those lines. Obviously, whether there's a cost or anything is outside of our committee's area of expertise, the town administrator or some designee may be able to address that type of question. But you correctly identified why it's a material piece, that it doesn't state that they shall do it, but it gives them the ability to can do it.
Yeah, I think the statute says may. And then this, just in number 3, I looked through the notes of the Board of Appeals that they gave me roughly the beginning of the year. And I didn't see any answer to this was a question that I had in the recodified drafts, apparently right through number 9. And I mean, I guess what I'm looking for here is pick one of these two things. The statute says that in order for a use variance to be considered by the Board of Appeals, the bylaw has to expressly authorize it. If the bylaw is silent, I think that would work. So it would work an end where the Board of Appeals would be improper to consider it because it has to expressly authorize it. Silence is not authorization. So most towns that don't want there to be use variances considered at the Board of Appeals say the Board of Appeals is prohibited from entertaining use variances. And I would say in Massachusetts, based on my experience, that's 75% of all towns. Cities are different, but 75.
Yeah, I'm thinking from a town perspective, I would think that it would actually be a may not. Kevin, Eric, your thoughts on that? Because if there's going to be a different use, my expectation is that the expectation of the townspeople would be that that would come back to town meeting as a zoning change to permit whatever use it is. If it's a use that is so different that it's prohibited, it's not permitted, then it should go through a process to see should this be allowed. And an example of that would be, say, marijuana establishments, because otherwise you could try to use this to get around an otherwise prohibited activity.
Yeah, sweet.
I mean, I do a lot of work I've done a lot of work in cities and they make extraordinarily good use of a use variance, but I think towns are gun shy.
Exactly. And therein lies the difference. It's also the level of relative expertise on the adjudicatory boards
Yeah.
is going to be different in a larger city versus a mid-sized town. So whereas we have the tools in the town to do things, it's time consuming, but it's not cost prohibitive to propose a new use and to make a zoning change. It really does cause a conversation that I think benefits the town itself.
Well,
And we've seen quite a few of them.
Yeah, Brian just did that with the self-storage.
Exactly. That's the example that recently comes to mind.
All right, so without objection, I'll leave it the way I've just corrected it.
I'd say continue on.
Okay, I think that might be the end. I'm not saying it's the end of my work. I'm just saying it's the end of the work I've done. Yeah, the one thing, I know that there was some hesitation on the part of the board to this. I don't know what we're going to get done on this, given the short window we have. So I'm assuming you're gonna do it at a later date.
But my expectation is that this is going to have to get punted to another committee.
Okay. And
Kevin and Eric, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's time to make significant or, well, even insignificant changes to that section.
Without having, without having significant political headwinds.
Right?
And then this is the AG's deleted sentence from the ADU. This is the second thing that she wanted. So the only other thing that I've got to do is I want to go through all of these overlay districts and see if they define special permit granting authority unique to the district. Like, for example, the sign overlay district doesn't have a paragraph in it that says the special permit granting authority will be the ZBA. It's in the definitions of the sign overlay district. I think that's confusing, so I would move that back
Yes, I agree.
to the from the sign overlay district to the bylaw itself. So for example, this is the sign overlay district definitions. See, this is only for the sign overlay district, special permit granting authority, zoning board of appeals. If I'm going to use the term SPGA in the sign overlay district, I got to have a place to introduce the ZBA. So I'm going to probably move that back over. There's only 8 overlay districts. Some of them don't have this definition in it, so. And then many of Eric's changes are, I would call them cosmetic. So sometimes it's zoning board of appeals, sometimes it's board of appeals, pick one, go with it. I think we're going to go with ZBA. I've already fixed the SPGA references. And Eric took a lot of painstaking care to identify all of these things. I had no idea, for example, that the old bylaw had a fetish for using and/or. I just blocked and pasted it. And so I think we've got to finesse that. And I've got, 30 places that Eric found that I need to fix. And then there's the obscure. As he points out, 9510 line 5 refers to zip car. Is there still such a thing? I'm probably going to change that to hourly rental vehicle.
Short answer is yes, Zipcar is still out
I
there.
Googled it. We Googled it while I was talking with him. So,
Yeah. And they call it car sharing or vehicle sharing.
oh, okay. They don't call it hourly car rental?
No, because it's not actually a rental. It's actually a dynamic sharing, more akin to a Verbo type of environment.
So what is the term?
Car sharing or vehicle sharing. Vehicle dash sharing.
Okay.
Coincidentally, it's owned by Avis Budget Group, so it's owned by a rental agency.
Oh. All right, so that's where we're at. I've got some work to do. What I propose to do is to give you back a final version of draft 10 that's got yellow for changes, except for things like, SPGA, but substantive changes, and then a clean version.
Mhm.
If anybody, I'll get that to you. I want to get it to you as early next week as I possibly can, so you have time to get back to me. But if anybody wants to, fire back at me, as long as you don't violate the open meeting law, that's fine. And I'll talk with Brian on the phone to catch up with him.
That sounds good. Because if you're able to coordinate with him and make sure that the changes that you think are sensible of his are able to be incorporated, because from what I saw, there was nothing substantive that he was proposing for changes. It really was all ministerial to clean things up.
Yeah, like I said, I only had time to get through maybe section 4.
Okay, anything else on that? Otherwise, a couple other items that are related. So one is for the town meeting preparation. There are a couple of tasks and we need to do the collaboration with the other public bodies. And it sounds like Kevin, you're going to help with that substantively to make sure that there's the necessary publishing and the legal pieces are handled for, particularly for the planning board. The zoning article is going to be the big one that comes forward for that. The other pieces for the town meeting article is a final report. And my current thinking on that is that any of us, and failing any volunteers, I will draft a very brief final report that explains what this committee has done over the last several years, who's been on it, number of meetings, official meetings, things along those lines. And then we will be able to review it at a meeting sometime before the town meeting itself. We already have the article approved for submission, so then it's just a matter of going forward and the actual report itself and figuring out what conditions we may have upon whether we actually hand that to the moderator. According to our town's bylaws, our work is technically finished upon the presentation of that particular article to the moderator, regardless of whether it gets accepted by the town meeting or not. Just to be clear, it's the way that the bylaws in the town charter is written. Even if the town says we won't accept your report, once we've handed it, this committee will have concluded its work. So I think if anyone wants to do that, I'm happy to have help in writing or have someone else do the initial piece of that. Otherwise, I can take that on and present it at another meeting. Similarly with presentation, the expectation that I currently have is that I'll take the presentations we previously used, adapt them, update them for the various articles that we have submitted and will be presenting to the town meeting, both general bylaws and zoning related. Any thoughts on those items?
That sounds good to me.
So the other piece, I'm not sure if anyone else watched the town council meeting of Monday. There is a proposal by a town councilor to amend or change a general bylaw that is related to topics of interest, topics that may be of interest to this committee. Specifically, it's a proposal to not to change how town meeting works, so that there could be a process to effectively vote down an article without any sort of consideration for discussion. And it would just require a majority vote type of componentry. We did have a little bit of a discussion about this towards the end of last year. And the proposal that has been floated is materially different than those. And it would allow for people to effectively stop a discussion before it actually even happens. So you may not even know what the topic is of substance. So just throwing that out there, I don't know whether it's going to make it to as a formal article or not. If you want to watch the town meeting, it's about 30 minutes or so into the town meeting, the town council meeting. It's about 30 minutes or so into that particular meeting that I saw. They took no action on Monday at their meeting. other than they opened the warrant itself. So on this topic, they took no action. They did have a little bit of a discussion. Just really want to raise the awareness of it. We have not been asked as a committee for any opinion on this particular topic. And so I'm not looking for us to render any opinion on it. Just want to raise it that it's something that's out there and we may be asked to render an opinion should it make it to an article without coming through us for a review. There's no requirement that we review bylaw review articles or that we review articles that affect bylaws. It is often done as a courtesy. And so this just becomes a matter of if that happens, I encourage you to look at it with an open mind and then we can have an honest discussion in another meeting. So just want to present that out there. Any thoughts on the town meeting the town meeting preparation or other elements? Okay, with that, if you can check your calendars for September 29th, which we have historically met on the first and third Mondays of the month. That would be next Monday, which is, given that this Wednesday, would be impractical for Attorney Bobrowski to get everything turned around, sent out, and for us to read it. Not sure that the first piece would get completely turned around before a meeting on Monday afternoon anyways. The 22nd is a holiday. It's the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. You'll see that on the agenda as well. And so that's where I picked the 5th of the Mondays of the month, which is September 29th. Wanted to see if you were available for a meeting. Should it be needed to potentially review any other potential articles that may need to be approved, would be the primary purpose of it, or to have discussion on any changes if Attorney Bobrowski, in his professional judgment, thinks that should be discussed before the public hearing.
I can do it, Mr. Chairman.
That works for me too.
Okay, so I will notify the committee members. I'll work with you, Attorney Bobrowski, if you think that meeting is germane and or if there's other business pending before the committee that needs to be processed before the warrant closes, that would be an appropriate time to handle it.
Great.
So we've got that. Otherwise, there are a couple before that meeting. There are 4 different holidays to be aware of. Constitution Day and Citizenship Day is September 17th, which honors the adoption of the Constitution. September 22nd has 3 very important days. It's Navaratri, which is a Hindu holiday. It's the autumnal equinox, otherwise known as fall begins, and it is also the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah that begins that evening. So just want to make you aware of those items. And with that, while we no longer have a quorum, as a practical matter, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn has been made. I will second it. Any objection? Kevin in favor?
Yes.
I'm also in favor. With that, even lacking quorum, the meeting will have to sine die, to use the Latin for it, at 8:23 p.m. Thank you very much for all of your assistance, Attorney Bobrowski.
Right
Much
on.
appreciated. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate everyone's coming together for this. I will contact and Eric has rejoined if you want to indicate that. So we do have a quorum for the closure. And Eric, just to let you, just to give you awareness, we did just take a vote to adjourn the meeting at 8:23. So we are with a full quorum, we're able to have that. Your vote will be recorded as absent, likely due to a technology issue, which is fine. If you want to join us, you can for that. And anything you want to say before we actually close out fully?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Eric.
Okay, so I'm affirmative for those votes to which I appear to be abstaining. So not my own will, but the computer willing. The Zoom willing, yes.
So there are 3 votes, and we will certainly accept your votes at this time. Or 4 votes. The first is the acceptance of the minutes.
Yep, I'm for that. I saw
Okay.
that.
Second vote is on the acceptance of the bylaw report, so that we can make a report at the town meeting on November 8th.
That's the one that has my comments as presented by Mark.
No, this is actually just a report, a general report of our
Oh,
committee,
yeah,
which will
yeah,
also
yeah.
discharge it.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's obvious and necessary.
So, and the third is the
big
article
one.
to do the
Yeah.
replacement of the zoning article itself as a recodification.
Yep,
So we'll record that as an affirmative. And the last vote, which is the most important of the evening for you, is the vote to adjourn, which you weren't present for. So with that, we'll retake the vote since you are present. Eric, vote. We have a motion to adjourn at 8:25. Are you in favor?
I'm in favor.
Eric is in favor. Kevin?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. So with that, the meeting is actually adjourned at 8:25 with a quorum. Thank you very much, Eric, for joining and getting through the technology difficulties. Much appreciated, so that we could have a quorum and have a meeting that is consistent with the various Massachusetts general laws. So thank you both for your time this evening. Much appreciated. And I wish you each a good night.